The second command, again, is rooted in those four worship principles: mastery, eternity, unity, and ownership. And Paul simply says this: glorify God in your body. When Paul says that, he really is summarizing all that life is about. In fact, he's actually going beyond the four worship principles to say that these four worship principles are rooted in this huge, significant, life-changing reality. There is a God at the center of all things. You could argue that the four most important words ever spoken about sex are the first four words in the Bible: in the beginning, God. Because if God is on scene, then everything in life is different, is changed, is altered, including sexuality. Because if God is on scene and He is my creator, then I belong to Him, and all of life is about one single thing: how can I, in this moment, live for His glory? Now, here's what this does for sexuality. For 99.99% of people out there, the only pleasure that drives them in sex is their pleasure. I'll do what is necessary to achieve personal pleasure. And I want to say this clearly. If all you care about in sexuality is your pleasure, you are a danger to you and you are a danger to others. Because the pleasure that is meant to shape my sexuality is the pleasure of God. That God would be pleased by everything I think, everything I desire, everything I say, and everything I do in my sexual life. You see, it is the pleasure of God, the greater pleasure of God, that protects sexuality from being dark and destructive. Because what always seems pleasurable is not always pleasurable. What seems pleasurable is not always pleasurable. And pleasure without boundaries quickly goes dark. And so Paul ends with the bottom line: glorify God in your body. You see, for that I need grace. You could argue that in talking about sexuality, in 1 Corinthians 6, Paul has written a sermon about how deep my need is and how sufficient God's grace is, because even sex preaches the gospel of human need and divine provision.